Hi everyone. So today I would like to demo the new redesigned OCS running in a real cluster. So for the demonstration I'm gonna use my own cluster. So this is the cluster I have in my GCP sandbox environment. This contains a couple of nodes, I think 6 of them, right? Let me see if I can find that and I can show them to you. So let me see. So this is it. So this is actually the cluster that I have. It has 6 nodes, and as you can see, the memory per node is 2.95 gigabytes. This is an important number, and I'm going to show you why. So in general, when we talk about Kubernetes, we can define the resources that a pod can actually request, and also we can also define the limit for those resources. So usually by resources, the most common thing is CPU and memory that a container can use. And we have two different fields there. We have the request and we also have the limit. So request means the amount of memory and CPU that a container will need. And what limit means, it means that if the container needs more CPU or more memory, and the node where the container is running has that resource available, then it can actually use more than the request amount. Of course, up until that limit. And we actually use those things when we configure operational container scanning. So let me show you. I have here my test project. So this is a configuration for the operational container scanning. So we are going to scan GMP system. This is just a namespace. And as you can see here, we have some resource requirements. We have request and limit for CPU and memory. And as you can see here, I'm using memory 3000 MI. So this should be perhaps a bit smaller, but okay. It should do the same thing. So that means that usually it's going to use 300 MI, and it can, if the node can permit it, it can go up to 3000 MI. So that should be okay. So another interesting thing is that with K9S, this, for instance, it's a view where we can see all the pods. And here you can actually see the request of CPU per pod and the limit. The same request and limit, right? So this might be interesting. So let's see what happens now. What I'm currently doing is that I'm running the GitLab agent locally, and I'm running it, I'm running it in debug mode from my MacBook inside the cluster. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to trigger it. So right now I'm gonna trigger it in a minute from now. That minute already passed. So let me do it like this. I'm gonna push this, right? And then here is actually the GitLab agent running. You see that it already has a new configuration, and you see here that the cadence has been updated. You also see here the resource limits that we have. Now we wait for a minute until those pods are deployed. And we should be able to see the pod coming up here. So these two views are exactly the same, pods and pods. I want to use this view for logs, and I want to use this view to see if we can see the CPU and request and limits, and the memory request and limit, although it might be quite fast, so we might not catch it, but let's see. And this is a view with the config maps that will be created. Okay, we already have this up and running. So here it looks like doesn't consume much, or maybe these numbers are not updated yet, but let's wait a bit. So right now, the container running in the pod, so this is the Trivi Kubernetes wrapper. It's trying to do a Trivi scan, which was triggered by the GitLab agent. And we're using the latest version of the Trivi Kubernetes wrapper. So let's wait a bit. This might take a couple of seconds, depending how big is the namespace, how many workloads there are there. Yes, it's finished. Actually didn't request too much, or at least these numbers were not updated. You see here that a config map was created. You can also see it here, and it's gone. And the reason why it's gone is because it was deleted by the GitLab agent. So let's see now what happened on the GitLab agent side. So that was the last thing we saw, right? The new configuration. Here it says that we are going to start a Trivi scan. It's deploying an OCS scanning pod for the namespace GMP system, so that seems right. It's monitoring the pod status until it's done. And at some point here, the pod status was succeeded. So the OCS scanning pod succeeded. Reading chain config maps, well, it was only one. It's reading this config map, so that's correct. Creating the vulnerabilities and transmitting the vulnerabilities to GitLab. And then in the end, it's deleting the chain config maps and deleting the OCS scanning pod. So that's it. It actually works. So you see here that the pod is gone. So there is no pod anymore. This was deleted, but also the config map was deleted. Now I want to show you one more thing. Let's change this. Let's add this to 1. And I'm going to push this. Oh, I need also to change the time. So I need to change the time so that I trigger it again. So I'm going back here, and we need to wait a bit. Let me check. Let me see if the GitLab agent has received this configuration. Yes, it received it. Hopefully on time. I think it didn't receive it on time. So what can actually happen is that if it receives this configuration when we are already in this minute, it's not gonna trigger the OCS. So I think we have been a bit late. So let me make this one 14. Pushing again. The time right now is 13, sorry. We already received this one, 14, so now it should actually work once we are on the 14th minute. Yes, it actually works. So you see it here running, and my bet now is that this is going to be killed with an OOM error, so out of memory. But let's see. So this has been triggered, and indeed OOM killed. So you see that it was killed. For a brief time, you could also see the status here saying OOM killed. Probably you didn't see it, but if you rewind the video, probably it should be there. And when I come here, you see that the pod status was failed, and it tries to delete any remaining chain config maps. That's the correct behavior. Deleting the OCS scanning pod, and actually it says here that it failed to execute a trivy scan. That was the action that the scanning pod was trying to perform when it failed, and the reason is OOM killed, so that the user can actually have an idea of why this happened. Yes, so last comment is that I'm also new to how to use these resources. I think also Sao mentioned that we need quite some memory. I'm not exactly sure how much memory we need, but for sure we need more than 1000 MI. So we need to experiment a bit with that. But that's it. Thanks for watching.